Let's talk iPhones. Just kidding. Let's talk Sony. So I currently shoot with this camera I'm recording on right now, which is a Sony a7 IV from a couple years ago. If you don't believe me, well, here. There you are. Yes, it's resting on a tree branch. Trust the process. Now, there's a lot of really good cameras, and I actually love this camera for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to get into that. Today I want to talk a little bit about comparing, hello, focus on me, there we go. Talk about comparing mirrorless cameras with smartphone cameras. And just a little bit about that, where each one, obviously, it does really well, and then where some do less well. Because let's face it, you can't take every picture with a smartphone, you can't take every picture with a DSLR. Or a mirrorless. So, for that matter, let's just jump into the video. We're just going to talk about the pros and cons of both. And then, you know, at the end of the video, maybe you'll decide what you want. So, with that being said, let's get into today's video. If you don't know who I am, I'm a photographer, videographer, college student, and yeah, media creator. I do some stuff for some brands, a couple schools, and I just love what I do. So today, I just want to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of mobile photography versus mirrorless photography. Now, one of the big ones instantly is size. This is very slim, very small, very compact, easy to carry around, pocket, jeans pocket, back pocket, skinny jeans, whatever. It slips in there, gone instantly. And that is that's really the biggest thing going for it, that and computational photography. Now, what is computational photography? Well, computational photography is the idea that I can point a camera, namely this one, at something, not myself, and I can point it at a scene, tap to focus, like on you guys. I can point it at a scene, zoom in, I can tap to focus, it actually autofocuses, take the picture, and get a very good image. It does all the work, it does my ISO, it does my shutter speed, it does everything for me, and I end up with a very decent looking image. Now, of course, normal mirrorless cameras have a intelligent auto mode as well, where it does 90% of that work. But again, that can't fit in your pocket. This can't. And so the idea of having this is also, it does something called Smart HDR. Now, every company has it called a little bit different. Apple, I think they're on Smart HDR like 700 by now. But the idea is it takes like half a dozen photos, takes the best parts of each, combines them into an HDR. It's a very entry-level explanation of how HDR works. Now, these do HDR. So I can zoom in here, and I can see the grip. Very well focused, very good looking, and exposed properly. Or I can zoom up to the sky or the trees, and that's still very well exposed. Nothing's blown out, nothing's crushed. Now here with this video, like if I go right here, it's gonna be a lot brighter right here, here, and then darker here on my hoodie. And if I took this as a picture, it might be crushed. Right here, extremely blown out right here, right now. So that's something that Smart HDR does, is it takes all the images, takes the best parts, gets rid of everything else. Now, how do mirrorless cameras combat this? Well, they don't, because first of all, they really came first, but the idea of what they do is they have such a big sensor, they'll just expose different parts a little bit differently, and they can take so much data in that you have so much more data to manipulate. So I could take a picture on this camera and it might look completely blown out. Well, okay, not, you know, nothing's perfect, but because of the sensor size on this camera is so big, I can take a picture that looks a lot more blown out, and then when I go actually in and edit it, I'll be able to recover a lot more data. Now, let's talk about speed. These things' burst modes are insanely fast. This thing's burst mode is insanely fast as well, but it has a limit. These can record until your storage runs out. That one can record until its buffer runs out. What's a buffer? Well, a buffer is a small allocated amount of storage that you can write to as it writes to a little bit slower storage. Think of it like writing to SSD before it gets transferred over to a spinning drive. If you know much about computers, and you know Apple did their thing called Fusion drives, where they would take a small like 128 gig SSD, pair that with like a terabyte spinning drive, and that was your Fusion drive. It would do all your very fast tasks or just your most used files on the SSD, and then move all the other files over to your spinning drive. Same idea. You have a buffer you can write to as it writes to your extra storage, especially with these huge files. But then when that buffer fills up, you have to wait until you have offloaded everything else onto your storage. Now, cameras don't use spinning storage. I'm not suggesting they do, but the idea is you still have you have a finite amount of images. Now, depending on how fast your camera is and how fast your storage is, will determine how many of these images you can take. My camera, if I put it on JPEG low, I can pretty much hold the shutter until my storage fills up or my battery does, whichever comes first. But if I'm shooting uncompressed raw images, which are 70 megabytes apiece, I can take about 7 images before it has to buffer and move all those over to my storage, and then I can start taking images again. Now, let's talk about something else. So, on a lens, I mean, you can kind of see it with this one, not crazy well, but on camera lenses, you can get a lot more depth in your images. Like the shallow depth of field back here, my hand's out of focus already, here. Now, if I do something on the phone, they've gotten a lot better, but you're still lacking the depth of field that you can get on a normal mirrorless or DSLR camera. Now, phones have done a lot of computational stuff again to make these portrait photos look a lot better. We have smart portrait, the iPhone for portrait photos uses its LiDAR scanner, which takes a depth map and then changes the depth of the image according to that. So if I take a picture of y'all right now, it'll then process a little bit and you'll get a very naturally processed photo. Okay, it's processed the image, is processing in the background, and now I can zoom in. It really took it to heart and blurred out everything except for like an inch of the camera. So, you know, do you. But with cameras, you don't have this artificial portrait because you're actually getting that depth of field from your lens, be it a 1.5, a 2.5, a 3, or a 4. Like I'm right now shooting at a 4.5, but there's still this depth of this separation from the background that I have, which is really nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys some images taken on the phone and the camera and just let you see for yourself. And that's really gonna wrap up today's video. Not gonna be a crazy long video. I'm already pushing 8 minutes, but we're just gonna do a quick comparison between some photos, see what you like. And we'll catch you guys in the next video. Take it easy, fam. Peace.